Welcome, welcome. I actually ended up doing the wrong problems for, uh, I did these problems. I sent you the wrong one. I sent another hard problem that I thought was too difficult to start with. So I wanted to do another, um, and I ended up sending the wrong problem. So you'll see something new if you've done all of them. This is going to be a new one. All right, so let's get started. So actually, I should ask, did anyone actually try these? Did anyone attempt them? I think Zach did. He's not here. Okay. Totally good. Totally good. Great. We're on the right track here. Good. So at least we looked at it, but it honestly doesn't matter as long as you tried. That's all that matters. So we see basic injection. See if you can leak the whole database. Flag is in there somewhere. If you want, I can do the very first, the complete beginner challenge as well. And that actually might make some more sense to start here first. But what this is you're brought to this page. We see that there's some flag hidden somewhere. Give you a bunch of nice hints. Application, memory. This leads me to think, okay, so maybe I don't have to do any like deep diving, nothing involving Burp Suite. And it's probably just going to be directly on the website. So I look around and like see, all right, so there's some articles, something made by someone. Okay, so there's a piece of text, nothing special about it. I'm going to inspect element, just because that's kind of what I do first. I mean, even if I think something should be a little more complex, I always like to see, where's expand? I always like to see everything. So a lot of this is actually unreadable. Like I will probably not understand that quickly. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of understanding because this is a question that's apparently easy. So the problem should jump out pretty quickly. Okay, so we are reading, reading, and reading, and we eventually find something interesting. Let's see if I can find it. It's hidden here somewhere. Um, Gosh, nothing yet. Nothing that I see. Really, nothing. Okay, so I see nothing on the main element page, but the hints gave us two, or the blog gave us two hints. So application memory. Now, when you see the inspect element, you see that there's two tabs, application memory. Start with application first, and there we go. We see in the storage, the on the application that it stores a value locally. We see it has a key and the value is flag. And this is actually the flag to the question. So it just has you look around. And memory, there's nothing in it, but at least they have you check a couple places. So we've got our flag. And I'll enter that in here. Okay, so I'm logging in really quick. Oh man, that's annoying. Anyways, we got the flag. So great, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, basic injection. This is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. Um, Whereas like you might actually have to do some researching online, figure out some stuff that's not just like inspect element, you know? So, okay, let's start this challenge. Put that into my browser here. All right, so the first thing I do when I see this, or really any website, is I look around, of course, like I did in the last one. I play around with the website. I try to see if there's anything interesting. Actually, what I would do is inspect element, of course, always, and expand recursively just to see everything. And this is what I see. I see something really interesting here. See, try some names like Hiroki. One second. Let's see if I copy that. Noah, Luke. So I'm going to write that down because those might be useful. And I see nothing else on the website. Nothing really interesting in application. Nothing interesting in cookies. Really, there's nothing that jumps out to me immediately here. So don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So what I think is I'm going to try those names. I'm going to try Hiroki, Noah, Luke. Let's see. Great. Noah, nothing, and then Luke. I really should have cleared my application cache. Okay, actually, I'm going to do that so that it's not. Um, one moment. Just give me a second. Okay, it should be good. So you won't be able to see anything anymore. So there's no answers. All right, so Hiroki had nothing, Noah had nothing, but Luke returned something interesting. Luke returned actual data. So I see it returned probably, if it's in a database, a table name. And in that table is an entry Luke. And associated with that is another table, data, with some, I guess, data, some text or something. So it leads me to believe, okay, some sort of database is storing something, we can retrieve it somehow. And because this question gives us a hint here, injection, we'll try some command injection, and specifically SQL injection. Just because, SQL database, injection, SQL injection. There we go. So what I would do now is I would definitely do a quick search, but I've done that a little bit in advance. And well, actually, I did these problems and I went through and found websites as I took notes, which is always a good idea to take notes. And I found a website by OWASP, Open Web. I really can't remember the name, but it's an international website security platform, like organization. So this is a lot of information on just SQL injection. Everything you need to know is here. So after reading this, you kind of get a basic understanding of SQL injection. I highly recommend reading this. This is a great read. Now my second website would be this one, which I read a couple websites, but these are the ones that really give a lot of light into something. So this one was a great read. And then there was this. So W3 Schools has training on SQL, of course, on all of these languages. And this training is really cool. So you can actually go through and it teaches you everything. At the very end is, of course, injection. And in that shows you why it happens, how you craft an SQL, how you craft a proper injection. And then we see, okay, great. So here's our first example of SQL injection. So our user ID of 105, that's just a user ID. We're selecting that, or we're selecting 1 equals 1, which means return whatever this is. And if it's false, just return anything that's true. So this should really select or return all rows from the user's table, right? So of the selection user or all users, essentially. Now we can try something like that, right? So we can try, there's actually some more examples down here like this, for example. We can try that. Let's see if that gives us anything. Okay, no results. Not to fear, not to fear, totally okay. So as we keep reading, or we can actually branch out from here, go to Google and figure out some other commands that are like this to, dump the table via SQL. Eventually you'll find that this command works perfectly. And I'll break it down here. So we have our user, and we are closing a quote, saying like, hey, do some, or this is the end of our person we want to select from, or one, the extra character one equals one, and don't close it with quotes. So it actually thinks of this as an actual command. It's really, really kind of interesting. And what it does is, of course, return the entire database, which gives us, from the user flag giver, the flag. See if actually I can put that in here without flag. Logging in. It'll probably tell me I need to log in, won't it? Okay, well that is the, okay, can't solve it twice. That's the flag, which is really interesting. So we learned a little bit about SQL, and then we can branch off and do some more challenges. So we'll keep those up. We might need them later, and we'll pivot to another question. This is medium. It gets a little bit more spicy here. So we'll copy that. We'll paste that into our browser. And the first thing we see is, sorry, it seems like your user agent is not correct. In order to access this website, the one you supplied is actually the one that I'm using. So this is actually what my browser is. So when you get to something like this, you're like, what is user agent? What is that? So you're asking questions all along the way. What is user agent, and what can I do to possibly um, make it so that it recognizes that user agent? So I would first start with researching what is user agent. Um, let's see if I have a link here. If you type in user agent, it'll eventually bring you to that it's a HTTP head. Oh, actually, no, I'm doing the wrong challenge. 1 second. Yeah, no, this is totally fine. Okay, so gives you to a list of HTTP headers, and somewhere in here would be user dash agent. So we read, okay, so it's a field value. A few field values can contain comments. It's a field value comment specifically. Um, and then if we go into our tab of request fields, standard request fields, one of those is user agent. This is the user agent string of the user agent, and this is how it's used. And aha, this looks really similar to what it gave us, what it returned to us. This whole part looks really similar to the example that it gives us. Okay, so that leads me to believe that I must change the user agent in such a way that that I can fool it into being some other browser, some other user agent. So what I do is I'm going to open up Burp Suite, and I'm actually going to copy this website. And for those of you who haven't used Burp Suite, uh, it's a technically a man-in-the-middle attack. But what you do is you can intercept the data that goes to your browser. Burp Suite sits in the middle of that, and you can intercept them. This is the request, the GET request for this page before it downloads it. Before we get this, so we can think, all right, so we've got to change one of these values. That actually happens to be user agent here. Ah, that looks like our actual user agent. We've got to change this so that it looks like something different. Now, how do we do that? Right? So I'm going to send this to repeater. And the reason why I'm sending it to repeater is because I don't have the response. I want to see what the response is after I send this get request. And the response, this is actually what we download here. Sorry, it seems like your user agent is not correct, blah, blah, blah. Here's the user agent that we have. And then the person who wrote the CTF wrote a little comment here, little hint, that this super secret agent might be the thing we should enter for a user agent, right? So we do that, user agent, and then we're just going to paste in super secret agent. We'll send that, and then we get something different. Sorry, it seems as if you did not just come from the site awesomesauce.com. So another thing we do is we think, okay, so if we just changed their user agent to something and it gave us something interesting, maybe we have to change where we came from, be really specific in where we came from. So how do we go about finding out what HTTP what's this called? I just said it. Request field we have to use to return that. So after some researching, origin, you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's not right. It's got to be something else. Maybe you hit it dead on, and you go, oh wait, I've got to find referrer. I look up some stuff and I find that referrer is the thing. Is the address of the previous web page from which a link currently requested the page was followed, right? So what's the thing that we just came from? Some website, and that would be awesomesauce.com. And here's an example of using it. So we'll put that in our request just to play with it, play with the website that is. So we'll put refer and awesomesauce.com, and then we'll see what happens. Ah, bingo, that was it. So we got our flag. So what you learned here was how to research from something that you've never heard of, looking into what paths you might go down, and then if it's a header, for example, how do you change that, and what are the things you're looking for in the response, and then maybe pivoting and doing that again. Right, so hopefully that wasn't too confusing. but that is actually our flag. And again, can't solve it twice. So great, we have our flag. Okay, next one, post practice. I don't think I put this one in the, I don't think I sent this one out. Let me just check if this is actually the one that I sent out, a part of the list. No, this is not a part of the list. So I did an extra challenge. If we have time, if everyone's interesting, I can do another one. This is very similar to this bump your header challenge, but it involves something a little bit more interesting, in my opinion. Okay, let's move on to something a little bit different there. So that's the same question. Is this 149? Yeah, so I really go, yeah, easy, medium, hard. Okay, so this one I've got to say is a lot more difficult than these two. So before I do this one, does anyone want to see another one like the one I just did? Or should I go on and do something a little bit more challenging like the one I'm going to show you? Any preferences? Continue. Okay, cool, cool. All right. So, and if you have any questions, please, 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 please ask. That's what I'm here for. So, we'll do the hard one then. Great. And actually, I'm gonna put this in Burp Suite. No, you know what? I don't need to put this in Burp Suite now that I remember it. Yeah. So we'll throw that in here. Okay. So this challenge, I spent quite a lot of time on this one. It really pushed me, but in the end, uh, I learned a ton. And I hope maybe after you watch this, you try to do it on your own, maybe from memory, but I'm going to try and explain to you my thought process. Okay, so what is the question? What does the question say? So I stumbled upon this website and I think they have the flag in there somewhere. Union might be a helpful command. Okay, so we see injection, we see flag in there somewhere. So it leads me to think, okay, another injection of sort, probably injection through a database somewhere. That's what I mean. And then also union. This is a humongous hint. Union is a parameter something. It's something a part of the SQL query. If you look at SQL, you actually will see this. So what are these called? Verbs. So it's an SQL verb, um, like from, like select, something like that. But it's just, it says and, right? So it's like this and also something. It does a couple of things, but I would look into that on your own. So I won't go into too much detail. But that's a huge hint. So we think, okay, great, SQL, narrowing it down a lot, and probably using some sort of union injection. And how did I figure out union injection? So I go SQL union union, and then SQL injection union. And then we see, okay, great, unit attack. So obviously I did some researching before this. I found some websites. And these actually I read. This one's a really great read. This is actually by the company that made this program, Burp Suite. This is a fantastic read. And then I found this one, which is kind of, honestly, it rips off of this website, but it summarizes it in very plain English. So this is a much easier read. But I would suggest reading multiple sources, of course. So where did that website go? Oh God. Oh, it's on Burp, right? All right. So wait, where did I put that website? Did I close it? Yeah, okay. We're fine. All right. So let's go to Burp. Let's move our proxy so that we can see this website. Great. And then what I'm going to do first, of course, as always, I'm just going to inspect element. Maybe they hid some clues in here other than the union. And honestly, I don't see anything. I don't expect to see anything in application, but we'll check there anyways. Yep, we don't really have anything, no keys. Okay, great. So I know we probably just have to do SQL. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the happy path, that's what it's called, where I just play around the website, see what it gives me, what values do what. And I notice immediately that it gives us as we enter in our ID in this input field, it spits out on the URL what ID we're going in. So instead of traversing just through this and hitting submit, we can actually also traverse up here just through the URL, which is, I think, pretty interesting. And we notice that there are different results. And there are results for 1, results for 2, and results for 3, but not results for 4, which is interesting. Maybe that is a hint for later, but we make note of that. And honestly, I should be really making notes in here, but I can show you that my actual one, I did make a ton of notes. Highly recommend that you do the same. I'm not even gonna, actually, I think I'm gonna keep this because I think we'll need it in the future. Okay, so we know that we have to change some IDs in some way. We need to see all of this data, all the entries that are existing. And then from there, we will figure out more about SQL and how we can break it, I guess. So first thing we do, or first thing that I did really was I did something similar. I put in the same command that worked before in the other SQL website, just to find or list all the tables, and we get nothing, which is cool. So I try some more, and eventually I stumble on this one that worked after quite a lot of testing. Remember, the syntax can be different depending on your website, or syntax for the SQL injection can be different from depending on the website, depending on the SQL type, depending on a ton of stuff. But this is the SQL command that worked for me, 1 or 1 equals 1. So we know that I'll break this down. So we know that there is actually an entry for 1. There's a table for 1. So we say or anything else that's true. So list anything, including that first table. So actually I can change this to this, and we see that we get the same result. So if you want to explore the meaning of that a little bit more in depth, I highly recommend it because this will make a lot more sense if you go back and watch this video. Great, so we have our list, right? What's the next thing we do? Well, if you do some more reading on that website, you'll find, honestly, if I search for a union, there it is. Okay, we find for a union query to work, 2 key requirements must be met. The first is that individual queries must return the same number of columns. Okay, and the data in each column must be compatible with the individual queries. So just in summary, if we want to search for 4 columns, we have to say exactly 4 columns, and there has to be exactly 4 columns for that query to work. And also, if we want to search for a list of names, so specifically strings, in those comments, we have to be very specific in our query that we're only passing in strings. So, select something from something. This has got to be a string. Whatever. It's gotta match the formatting of what the table is, right? So, thinking backwards, to carry out an SQL injection union attack, we've got to ensure that they meet these requirements so that we can break them. So, to find out how many columns are being returned, we can kind of push its buttons a little bit. We can look for columns that don't exist, and to find which columns returned from the original query are suitable to hold like strings or whatever result we're looking for in the query. We check specifically like, hey, we want to look for a string in this query, and I'll get to that. I'll show you what those examples look like. So we'll start here. We'll start. Honestly, I don't even need bird speed, so I think this is what I did before, and like that's why I closed this, but I really don't need this. Yeah, I'm sure everyone has it. Great. Okay, great. So let me just confirm the same website. Yep. Okay. 1 equals 1 or 1 equals 1. Perfect. Okay. So we'll check how many columns we want to see are being returned. So there are 2 ways to do this. There's this way, and again, if you read this, you'll figure out what this means in a little bit more depth, but I'll summarize. So there's this way where you check, so some value or table, you want to check order by how many things are in the table, and actually you can, how many columns are in the table, and you can increment this value. So we start at 1. Oh, this actually did work. Wow. And we can go to 2, and we can see, okay, great, second table. This didn't give us any errors. Let's see if we use 4. Okay, so it's really not giving us any errors. It should be listing a table that's completely null. And then there's also this command, which it's the same. So we just replace our little hyphen with specifically want to look for a entry that exists. Union select null. So we're looking for if that this field, this table, has a column that's null, and this would be in the first column or the 0th column, right? And now we can check the next column, see if the next one is null. If we do one more, and then we continue by adding more and more and more until we ended up getting a listing of columns that are empty. Now, why this works is SQL will filter for well, if it's a null, any value can be null. So like a string can be null, a integer can be null. Really, any value can be null. So this checks for if that thing that column has a certain data type or not. If it doesn't have a certain data type and it's not null, it means that that column doesn't exist. Hopefully, I'm explaining that a little bit clearly. But if not, then you can do some reading. You will end up finding out the same thing. So I can keep appending these nulls on my union select. And once I get to 4, actually, we see, great. It gave us our original table plus a table that's completely null. Notice that this has no values. It's all null. It means that the column size or the largest column is column 3. And the next thing over doesn't exist. So great, we found a lot about this SQL injection. So we found our first step, how many columns are being returned by the original query, so 3. And then which columns returned from the original query are suitable data type. So that's the next thing we check for. So now that we see, okay, all of these are null, one of them has to be a certain data type we're looking for. And the thing to do that is really interesting, at version. So at version will return the version number of the what is it, the website? No, wait, what do you think? Version number of something, a website or SQL version. I can't remember, but we'll see. Great, so return this. So actually, I'll explain this in a moment. Give me a second. So what this is doing is from the real value union, select the in the first column. Give me just a printout of the of whatever name this is, and that's a string. So we know, okay, great. So this confirms that that first column, like the other ones, are expecting strings. So it narrows down our things to search for a lot. And that's kind of the whole point of doing an SQL injection challenge, is that you're trying to narrow down your scope of how can you exploit this database to something very precise. What am I looking for exactly? And you do those through a series of these commands. So we'll paste this into Google and we'll find out what this means. This is actually the, what's going on? Oh gosh, why can't I click? Okay, so this is a MySQL version. So great, so that's why we looked these up. So this is our MySQL version. So that actually gives us another hint that it's MySQL. So we can format our queries as such. So now the next thing we do, of course, now that we found that the first one is a string, we would do this for each section. And actually, I did that before. And each one of these are actually all strings. It'll all put. Actually, I'll just show you. I won't even tell you. So it'll put a version number. I'll put a version number in each one of these columns. Great, right? Each one of these tables, I mean. So each one is a string, which is awesome. If not, it would be an error if it wasn't. Now I can try. After figuring out it's MySQL, I can look up some MySQL commands for searching for table names with strings, right? So we want to find a listing of all the table names, and we want to know the formatting of that if it's a string. So I won't go through that whole process, but I'll just show you what happens after you do all that research. And you end up getting this crafted query, right? So our same, you're a union select, and then we've got our nulls, so that's from before, but there's this interesting ask for table name. So we want to find the table name, in the first column, we want to print the table name. And then from this specifically, what schema? Table. So of the table name. And if we do that, we get a listing of all the possible table names in this database. And if we scroll down, we find, great, our table name we're looking for. So, wow, you found me. This is the table name we're actually going to end up looking for once we find what column specifically we want to look in. And actually, what you can do, it's funny enough, you can actually move this. Hold on a minute. You can move this query, move whatever you're searching for into whatever spot, right? So it might give you some more data that you're not finding, right? So we found that actually it shifted up where it's outputting our table names. And actually, it's the same. We get the same listing of table names, but you can actually shift if once you go back and you understand this formatting, you can actually shift the what table you want to output this on. So anyways, we ended up finding our table name we want to look for. So the next thing we do is we go to the same place we found our MySQL commands on, and we want to look for these columns specifically. So this is the next thing we get. So union select, actually one union select, the name of our column from the schema column. So we're looking for now specifically what column we're looking for. And this will actually list all the columns in that table. And we find that we go all the way down. We found that we found the column that we're looking for is found me. So to summarize, we want to find a command now that looks in specifically the table while you found me, right? So our table while you found me. In this table, we want to find the column found me, and that will probably be our flag. So if you take the same formatting of the thing before and you input found me as the column, and then from the table while you found me. So again, to summarize, SQL is going from a really, really broad look of the database to something very specific. So we're now specifically searching for this one column from this one table, and then we get our flag. Great. So that took me quite a while because it was a lot of testing, as you can imagine, a lot of looking online, reading a lot about SQL, reading about MySQL and how their formatting works. And eventually I got to narrowing it down enough that I can get this flag. And actually I can put this in here. You can see, great, I've already solved this. So yeah, any questions? That was a lot of information. Okay, so actually, the short answer is there is not too much of a difference if as long as you're specifying. So, like for example, I'll actually return the same thing if I just shifted the column. Like I can look for. So these are tables, and actually, if you read a lot about or read some more about SQL, specifically union select, this function about SQL, you'll see that whatever these are tables. So this is table 1, this is 2, 3, 4. I'd imagine that those are the names of the tables. I really don't know. But in table 1, I can output whatever that uh, sorry, I can output whatever is in this column from this table in that table. I'm really not explaining this right. But like for example, this will probably shift down one or like to the other thing. Yeah. Okay, so you short answer is you kind of have to learn more about SQL, and I would love to explain all of it, but it would take uh, a lot more time. Just essentially know that those columns are interchangeable at this point because we figured out that they're all accepting strings. Um, and we want to output what we're looking for into one of those columns. If that makes a little bit of sense. If it doesn't, I really apologize. I'll try my best. Okay. Okay. Good. And like I highly, 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 highly recommend you go through and read some of these websites. And I think I posted some of them in here, but if not, I'll post my whole like write-up thing that I did, or my all my notes if you all want to see that as well. But it's essentially going to be the same thing that I walk through here. Does anyone else have any other questions? Do you want me to go through the other challenge, or are you guys all tired of watching me solve these? I'm sorry. No, you're totally good. You're totally good. Um, okay, yeah, no, and like honestly, I didn't know much of this before this week. So like, but when I submitted these problems, I only knew like some basics about SQL. I knew at least like where to look from these challenges, which is honestly saying a lot. And especially when you first start out, that is very intimidating. But um, once you do some poking around, you get launched into a direction, and you end up finding this. Luckily you have some examples of some of these challenges. But yeah, like just know I went through the process of researching, and you'll see it in my document that I went through a lot of mistakes. Um, but yeah, like do not fear, you will eventually get it. I might do the other challenge, the other post challenge, because I think that one's a lot of fun. Um, yeah, we'll do that one. We'll do that one. Just as like why not? And then we'll finish off. And if you have any questions, totally ask. So this is post practice. And what I see first is, okay, it's going to be probably something with post, which is a HTTP method. Which we actually can see here if I do post. Oh, I'm launching burp, by the way. Um, 1 second. POST. Great. So we can read some information about what these method names are, get, post. There's a couple. Um, and then we can explore that. So before we do that, I'm just going to pull up the browser. And anyone who uses Burp Suite and is watching me right now, I'm always pulling up the built-in browser that they have. And if you're cringing, I'm sorry. I just really like the convenience of having a browser I can close when I'm done with my challenges. So, and also I don't have to set up a thing like in Firefox here. If you notice, I need to add this Foxy proxy, and I really just I hate doing it. So I am lazy and I just go through this. Okay, let's turn off intercept so we can see. All right, so this site takes post data that you have not submitted. Oh, let me finish reading this challenge. I can't focus. This website requires authentication via post. However, it seems as if someone has defaced their site. Maybe is there some way to authenticate? Huh, interesting. Okay, so not too much of a hacking thing, but or at least it gives me clues that it's not going to be exactly like anything like SQL injection or some sort of like hacking where you have to mess with some commands or whatever. This is probably just going to be something that helps us understand post better, which it was, and I really learned a lot. So okay, let's try intercept. Let's refresh, and we get this page. Now this page has some clues here. So we see, all right, so we're getting, and of course the name of our thing we want to get is post.php. We see our host. Okay, cache control. Again, like when if you're doing this challenge for the first time and you don't know what something means, best thing to do is have this window up side by side and kind of dissect it, right? So we see, okay, host, what is that? So host, all right, so I read about it, what it is, and then, okay, so it's expecting some sort of address of some sort, right? And then I would do that for all of this, right? Just to get familiar with um, all of these things, right? Learn as much as you can as in any step that you can, really, especially in a problem that's beginner, easy, intermediate, or um, medium. Okay, so we want to somehow mess with the post. So what I did next was I read a lot of this page. Actually, I read most of this page, and then I controlled S for post and did some more digging, and I found that this website, just by looking at Wikipedia's page on post, I read this, figured out, okay, so what does this mean? Why is there post? What's the history behind it? Blah blah blah. It's really kind of interesting. And then I see this use for submitting web forms. Oh, interesting. So they're asking for authentication, and this actually gives us a username and some sort of thing we need to put in. So it makes me think maybe I want to put in some sort of username or something, right? Great. So I'm going to send this to repeater, which is just a way for me to send the request and analyze the response. Send and edit the request and analyze the response. Great. So what is our response when we send the thing that gives us this website? We see, okay, username, admin, password, and that lines up with our question, which is we need to find some way to log in because they defaced our site, right? So we'll save these in a text document. I deleted my text document, but we'll save this. Imagine I'm putting this in a text document, and I'm going, okay, so what is a way, I asked the question, what is a way that I can use a username password? Somehow the post request, I have to manipulate this, that the website understands that as actually me logging in. So from my clue here, used for submitting web forms, I go, okay, maybe this is a web form. And I read this a little bit and I go, what is this? Never seen that before. So I click on it and I read, look up, and I'm like, okay, so I read the entry that it gives us, the application, blah, 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 form, URL encoded, type. And I read this and I see, oh, okay, using get or post method. This is the formatting, like a URL formatting, like usual. And it says that I need to add this to some sort of what's it called? What are these things? I can't remember what these are called. Request field. I need to add it to some sort of request field to make the website expect a username and password, or some sort of format. So I think it says it in here somewhere, something about content type. Maybe it says it here. I can't remember, but you pick up that it's content type from the request fields. If we go to content type here, we can see it being used, media type of the body request. So this media type we want to use is, funny enough, the actual example that it gives us. And honestly, I put this into Google. I just did some research on it just to confirm that this is what I was looking for. So I go, okay, so I need to add this content type of the format. What is this? Application. Oh, is it just because it's, yeah, that's why. Okay, of the format application form. And this is expecting, the website, the request is expecting that I put in some sort of field. So I'm guessing, just guessing, this is an educated guess. I'm saying, okay, so maybe it's asking for a username and then equals, because our encoded form here is equals. And then I guess our name is admin. And then admin, I don't know what I just did. Admin. And then because it's URL encoded, I need to put it in URL encoding format. So because I'm separating a space here, I need an and in between it. Again, this is something you look up when you look up URL encoding, but I'm just kind of summarizing it. And then I'm going to put password equals what password they give us. Nice password, by the way. And we'll see if I can submit this. I feel like I'm missing something though. Oh yeah, great. So this is a post. we're telling the browser, hey, no, do a GET request. So I want a POST request. I'm gonna change that up here to POST. And I think those are the three things I need to change. So POST, content type, and then our actual content that we're sending over. And if we send that, we logged in as a user and we got our flag. So hopefully that makes some sense. And hopefully that logic made sense in how I got there. But if you have any questions, please ask. So the yes, I'd say Burp Suite, if you're at least starting out, is super, super essential. I mean, there's so many ways. There are a lot of ways that you can interact with these challenges. Um, but I'd say, this is actually what professionals use. There's a professional version that makes analyzing these websites a lot easier. So yeah, I would say download Burp Suite as soon as you can. Postman, I think, is another one. I've never used Postman, but I've heard, right? Am I wrong for saying Postman is another one of these? Can anyone correct me? Um, yeah, so it's an intercept that helps you send your requests. Use browser cookies. Okay, so it sounds like it only manipulates browser cookies. This does it all. So I'd say, yeah, use Burp Suite to tackle these problems. You notice that I did the other ones in browser, but really it would be so much easier if you manipulated them through Burp Suite, just because the way the formatting works and the way that you can see the responses is very, very verbose. So I always use Burp Suite, even when I think that I won't need it, just because it gives me more information, about what I'm getting in response. And also, you really have to understand what is going on behind the scenes. Um, like when you're just manipulating just the front end, you really kind of don't really know how, or it doesn't really force you to learn how all that works. So highly recommend Burp Suite. You can get it on Windows as I have it here, but also I think it comes installed on Kali. And if it's not already installed on Kali, I'm sure it's super easy to download on Kali. Um, but yeah, I use it in Windows because I think it's easier just to, do these challenges there. Oh, it is. It's already on. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Anything else? Any other questions I can help out with? Maybe research methodology, something like that? Yeah, sure. I'm actually going to send over all my notes. So you can see everything that I have here, but I hope there's nothing sensitive in it. Yeah, whatever. I can always edit the thing in after the fact. So I'll put this in the CTF Learn channel. Oh, you know what? This might be over 2,000 characters. Oh yeah, this is totally over 2,000. Here, you know what? I'll send over the links then. Um, send over my links. Just do that right now. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Least I can do. Anything else while I'm working on this? Thank you.